But we're not going to do that. So let's talk about the Federalist era, right? We're only going to have 2 Federalist presidents. But let's talk about America in 1790, all right? First of all, and again, you have to run in every single word, but there's about 4 million people in America. Our population is doubling every 25 years, so we have a really high natural birth rate. What type of land do you think most people lived on? Farms or in cities? 90% of Americans lived on farms still. Like, even the North, just because they had smaller farms doesn't mean they weren't living on farms. They were just smaller farms. There were a couple cities, Philly, Boston, New York, Charleston, Baltimore. Again, you have to write all these down. I'm going to test which of the following was a big town in 1790. You're not going to see that many big exam.
You said that one right was 25 years.
25 years. So that's what we're talking about. In terms of finances, this is what's going to be the big one. We were not in good strait, right? We had very, very poor finances. We owed everybody money. We were like that guy who borrows money from everybody, and you when you see him coming, you run away because you know they're going to ask you for money. That was America. That's kind of what we're like today, too. Borrow a lot. We're almost up to $17 trillion in debt. Once we hit 17 trillion, I think we should have a party.
Waste more money.
Not America, like our class should have a party. Okay, so we owed lots of people. We weren't bringing much money in. We had lots of currency. What's the problem when you print off a lot of currency? Yeah, the value of it goes down. You must have had a really smart government economics teacher, Tess. I bet he looked just like Bradley Cooper. He didn't? No? It's too bad. Oh, good. So, this is what Washington's taking over, alright? Washington is really the only, not really, he really is. He is exactly the only unanimously elected president. No one ran against Washington. They weren't like, we'll take you on, Washington, and start bad rumors and stuff against him. Do you guys know Mrs. Potter, the new English teacher? She's a little adorable chick down there. I've decided to start bad rumors about her. I told her I was gonna. So I'm telling you guys, she used to date the Unabomber. She did. She dated the Unabomber. They have 5 kids together. I'm going to pass that around. I'm just saying, it's on the internet now, so it has to be true. I had someone actually tell me the other day, it's on the internet, Mr. Sarah.
Did you say bonjour?
Do what?
Was your response bonjour? No.
I don't get that. I must not be smart enough for that. So anyway, I told Potter that I'm going to create rumors about her and make her look bad. So she used to date the Unabomber, and they had 5 kids together. What's that even mean? You know who the Unabomber is?
No.
You people don't even know you're domestic terrorists in the early 1990s. It's like you weren't even living. I know, that's my joke. There was a guy named his name wasn't the Unabomber, it was like Steve Unabomber Smith. He became known as the Unabomber, and he was just, his name was Ted Kaczynski. And he was this really, really smart, brilliant guy who shut himself in a cabin and he made bombs and he would send them to people and they would explode because he hated how society was advancing technologically. He thought it was bad for our society morally because we were advancing, we were losing touch with our soul and our humanity, so we blew people up. So, or buildings and stuff up. And
he would send the bombs to people?
All different kinds of things. He had a different kind of bomber, right? And there was no picture of him. Like, we didn't really have a picture of him. So, you know, sometimes they make those sketches, like police sketches of a guy you're looking for. But the police sketch was so funny. You have to go and, when you get home tonight, Google sketch of Unabomber, like the police sketch. It was a guy with big, giant sunglasses and a hood over his face and a beard. It could have been 25 million different people in America. And this was the sketch that Americans were supposed to be looking around for. A guy that could have a hood on and wears sunglasses. So, you know, he is one beard away from being the Unabomber, right? It was awesome. They finally caught the guy. But he actually had an advanced degree in mathematics from Michigan. He's really smart. Anyway, that's who I've decided that Miss Potter had an affair with before when she was in high school.
Oh my god.
She had 5 kids in high school with the Unabomber, and they all had webbed feet. She had webbed feet children with the Unabomber in high school.
You couldn't just leave the children out.
Free Willy.
Just saying that. So if you see Miss Potter, like, oh, I heard you had webbed feet kids with the Unabomber. It's on the internet. It actually be true. Yeah, there it is.
It's a mustache.
That's a picture of the Unabomber. He didn't even have a beard. It's just guy in hood with glasses. That's what we're looking for.
It kind of reminds me.
No, I'm sorry. He didn't have a beard. It's just guy in white guy with hair is really what we're looking for here. The fact they ever caught him is kind of absurd.
You know the guy who jumped out of that one plane? He like stole a bunch of money and hijacked that plane and jumped out of it.
No.
I can't remember his name.
Okay. So he's the only one that was ever unanimously elected. The one guy at one time. He took oath in 1789, right? Washington, our first president. Where was our first capital?
Oh, Virginia.
No, that's a state.
Philadelphia.
Boston, Pennsylvania.
Not Pennsylvania. It was. Do what? New York.
New York.
It was in New York. We've actually had 3 capitals. The first capital was in New York. The second capital, Adams was president in Philadelphia, although they moved to Washington, D.C. right at the end of his term. And Jefferson was actually the first president to be president the whole time in Washington, D.C. Okay, so Washington's cabinet was important, okay, for a couple reasons. First of all, you're amazing. It was so talented. Second of all, he starts the precedent of having a cabinet. A whole bunch of the things the president does now that we just think is what the presidents do is because Washington established a precedent. Right? He is the father of our country for a reason. He was our commander-in-chief during the Revolutionary War. Funny part about that, by the way, he said, you know how much money he took for the position of commander-in-chief of the Army? He said, I will take no compensation. I was for free. All I want is for you to pay my expenses. He actually charged, in 1782 money, $100,000 in expenses. Not in current day money. In money back then, he charged our government $100,000 for expenses. He had awesome expenses. Like every time they would move camps, he would have them move all of his furniture and his portraits and everything with him, and it's pretty awesome. But his cabinet was amazing. First of all, who was his vice president? Which is not necessarily in the cabinet, but does anyone know who his vice president was?
Jefferson.
No.
James Madison.
No, John Adams. Right, Adams was the second president, and he's going to be the first vice president. From Massachusetts, short guy, bald, not like my father.
Was his brother Samuel Adams?
His cousin was, actually, yeah. John Adams probably also had the most famous wife at the time, one of the most active wives. Abigail Adams, pretty amazing. And had it been modern day, she's sort of like a Hillary Clinton. Like she was very, very talented and very brilliant, but just didn't have the opportunity. Sort of like Eleanor Roosevelt. All right, Secretary of State. When we say Secretary of State, what does that person do? This person's in charge of foreign affairs. The first Secretary of State was Thomas Jefferson. So Jefferson was the first Secretary of State. Who's our Secretary of State today, by the way?
John Kerry.
John Kerry.
That's the guy who lost to...
Both of those answers are right. Yes, he's very tall, he's very tan, and yes, he has white teeth. Unlike the blue teeth, unlike the blue tooth of normal Secretary of State. He's very manicured. He is. Have you ever seen the movie like The Skulls before? About the Skull and Bones thing at Yale? He was in that. He was very, very wealthy as a kid, and he went to Yale. And actually, he actually volunteered for duty in Vietnam. He had 3 Purple Hearts. He is Secretary of State now. He did run for president in 2004 and lost to Bush. The Secretary of the Treasury was a guy named Alexander Hamilton. So you have Hamilton and Jefferson are going to be the 2 big giant names on this, and they're going to really sort of set the pattern for the next 20 or 25 years of American history. It's people between who are like Hamiltonian Federalists and Jeffersonian Democrat Republicans. Yeah.
We
When did he die? I don't know how old he was. I mean, he was very old when the Constitution was written. It was not that much longer after that. So I don't know the date, but he was in his advanced years during the
So
Constitution.
that's why I wasn't included in any of this.
Yeah, but he also wasn't. He was a civil servant. I don't think he ever really wanted, from what I understand, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know how much he really wanted to be an elected official at that age in his life. But also, he was not. I mean, he had a past.
He
You
wants
know, I
to
mean,
keep Pippin.
Franklin had a past. So, getting elected, having affairs with Prince prostitutes is probably a little hard to do. Although back then, maybe it was just what people do, right? Back then, it was easier to be a politician. Today, it's hard to get elected when you sleep with Prince prostitutes a lot. Nothing is fair. People are so moralistic anymore, right? I mean, who would never would have? JFK would never have been elected, right? They would look at him and laugh now because he liked women a little bit. It is estimated that he may have cheated on his wife over 100 times, closer maybe to 200 times, just while he was president. Those 2.5 years while he was president. He told somebody, was quoted as saying, "I like to have a new girl about every 3 days." His wife actually had it's true, his wife had a deal with his father. His father was very wealthy, Joe Kennedy, that if she ever got an STD, she got $10 million.
Dear.
She knew that he was cheating.
Of course she knew. Everyone knew. But back then he didn't talk about it. It's reported that he had the White House, and I'm a Kennedy guy, that he probably, from what the evidence said in the biography that I've read, is that the White House pressured 3 different women to have abortions just while he was president. Could you imagine that today? With the president's knocking chicks up all over the place?
Little Obama's running over.
But I will say this, so does that mean he wasn't fit to be president? This is one of the things that we talk about because we become so sort of moralistic about things. I'm not saying that people should be knocking people. There's no excuse for that. But he also saved the world during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So there's that. Martin Luther King, you know how many women he cheated on his wife with? A whole bunch. Now let me ask you a question. Are you happy we have civil rights today?
Yeah.
Or would it be better, we're like, you know what? I don't want to have the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, because I want him to be better to his wife. Or are we kind of happy the way it happened now? I think it's B, right?
No, I'm not happy about it.
So sometimes you can't have both ways. Okay. Alright, so next down, so you have Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury. The Secretary of War was a guy named Henry Knox. Henry Knox was an awesome artillery general during the war. We didn't actually have a Secretary of Defense until the 1940s. It was called Secretary of War until after World War II. So if you ever see old movies about World War II or Civil War or whatever, you'll always see things about the War Department and not the Defense Department, because the War Department came around, or Defense Department didn't come around in 1947, the National Security Act of 1947 actually. And finally, his Attorney General was a guy named Edmund Randolph. He does not feature as much as the rest of these guys do, specifically Hamilton and Jefferson, but it's important to know that these were the first 4 cabinet positions that were ever started. Today,
What was the attorney?
Randolph,
What was he?
Attorney General.
What was his name?
Attorney General.
Edmund Randolph. And today those are the top ones. In fact, if you're Secretary of State, that's considered the top position in the cabinet. Followed by the Treasury, followed by today's Secretary of Defense, then followed by Attorney General. Who is our Attorney General today? Does anyone know? Several of you who had a very good government economics teacher aren't remembering this. His name is Eric Holder. Does anyone know who our Secretary of Defense is? Do what? Hillary Clinton? No, she used to be Secretary of State. Hannah, can you pick up that thing? His name was Leon Panetta. Does anyone know our Secretary of the Treasury? All right, you guys. Tucker Benson here. That's why you're an AP class. All right, what's next? All right, the big split. Let's talk about Hamilton and Jefferson. The next part of history is going to be basically split between Jeffersonians and Federalists. What do Jeffersonians want? What type of government do Jeffersonians want?
Local.
Federation.
They want states' rights, right? They prefer states' rights. They are scared of a strong central government, and they like states' rights. And Jefferson favored, in Jefferson's mind, what he wanted was a country of really well-educated small farmers. That was his utopia. A bunch of well-educated small farmers who are happy and contributing to America. Having their fun fall festivals, every October and September.
Beer fest.
What a great place. Hamilton wanted a stronger central government. In fact, Hamilton originally wanted the president's term to be lifetime. And he wanted to call the president His Highness.
Imperials.
What does that sound like?
King.
Britain.
Yeah, it sounds like a monarchy. It's no coincidence, by the way, that Federalists tend to side with Britain on most issues, and the Jeffersonians tend to side with France. In fact, the French Revolution is going to be one of the biggest things that separates how you feel, if you're a Jeffersonian or a Federalist, how you see the French Revolution. Jeffersonians tend to like, you know what, it's violent, but it probably, that kind of stuff, that might need to happen, right? To get rid of that king. Hamiltonian Federalists thought the French Revolution was just, was a nightmare, right? People with money, landed elite being killed by the,
Bob.
plebeians on the ground, right? This is the worst, right? It's like Dante's Inferno. It's awful. Seventh ring of hell. And all right, so that's what's going to be the two between them. Now, the Bill of Rights. We talked some about it the other day. First of all, basically, I would have thought you'd known this, but maybe not. What is the Bill of Rights?
It sets the guidelines for the laws.
No. It's the first 10 amendments. I'm going to stop assuming you guys know stuff.
I said the amendments, Mr. Sarah.
Do what?
I said the amendments.
You set the amendments?
No, I said the amendments.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not all the amendments, but it's the first 10 amendments. I'm not going to make you know all the amendments. I will do this, though. How much time is on that? One thing that we do...
1755.
Stop it. Don't start over again.